Hi, everybody. My name is Anne O'Connor, and I am the Employability Advisor here in the UL Career Service. So today I have been asked to speak to you about tricky interview questions. This is a really interesting topic because the majority of interviews nowadays will be competency based. Some may have some strengths based interview questions, but tricky questions do come up, and sometimes you will find yourself in a situation where you may have not prepared an answer for a particular question, or it's coming up, but you just haven't prepared the answer. So in today's workshop, we're going to look at difficult to answer questions and tips on how to answer them. So first of all, the first difficult question that always comes up in every interview and through all my years of interviewing is the one that I find is answered really badly. And it's the tell me about yourself question. It's coming up, you're going to get asked it, but you're so busy preparing your competencies, looking through your past experience for examples, deciding what to wear, how you're going to get there. A lot of people sort of forget about this question, and then at the very beginning of the interview, they get asked this question. You can actually just see the fear in their eyes when you ask this. When people normally answer this question, they feel it's the opportunity to maybe show their informal self, themselves outside of work. People tell you your age, people may let you know their personal family circumstances, information like that. And to be honest, while yes, if you feel you want to share that information, you can, but I would advise you not to. This particular question is really as proving and showing how you are suitable for the particular role that you're applying for, and how you highlight the relevant education, work experience, skills, and your career objectives. So why you're applying for this particular role. It's your selling opportunity. It is your opportunity at the beginning of the interview to tell the employer how you prepared for the interview. So my advice in this particular question is to really go back over the job spec and have this answer so rehearsed and so well prepared before you go into that interview that it's just so natural. It rolls off your tongue when you're saying it. You go back to that job spec and you see exactly what they're looking for. So when you sit down at that interview table and the interviewer goes to you, so Anne, can you tell me about yourself? You go, absolutely, certainly. So I have just completed my undergraduate degree in business studies here at the University of Limerick. I majored in HRM and minored in marketing. As part of my undergraduate degree, I got the opportunity to do a co-op placement as a HR assistant in X, Y, and Z company. Fantastic experience I had there. I got the opportunity to enhance my technical skills, and I'm now excellent at Excel. I also got the opportunity to present in front of senior management. And in addition to this, I also got the opportunity to work as a team member, develop communications. And now that I am just about to graduate, I really want to gain a position within the HR to start my career within the HR arena. Okay, so something like that. Obviously, I just did that on the fly. I hadn't really thought much about it, but you would expand what I have just said there and give a little bit more detail about your education, about your work experience, the relevant skills, how they link back to the role, and your career objective. It should be about a minute and a half long, and it really is setting up the interview for you. So I'm going to leave that now and I'm going to move on to the next one. So what are your strengths and weaknesses? Yes, we cringe when this one comes up. I personally hate this question being asked in interviews. If you asked me what my weakness was, I would probably say chocolate. But anyway, we can say that in the interview. So what I would always say, and this is again, you go back to that job spec and you see, well, what are the requirements for the roles and what am I really good at? What are my strengths? And I match it to that. With the weaknesses, don't lie. Everybody has a weakness. Don't say, oh, I'm a perfectionist. You know, that's used all the time. Be genuine. Be, you know, show self-awareness. Give them a genuine weakness that you have, but more so how you have learned to overcome it, how you're aware of it, what your coping mechanisms are around that particular weakness. But it comes with a caveat. Do not mention a weakness that is essential to the role. So if you're applying for a position as junior project manager and they're saying time management and organizational skills are essential, and you're going to mention that you've poor time management skills, but you've overcome this through using diaries, trackers, etc. Just don't mention it. It's not something. Another sort of sometimes a nice out with this particular question is maybe if you are moving role and this role requires a particular expertise in a certain area, you could mention, look, this is new to me. I've never worked with this technology. I've never worked in this sector before. So there will be a certain amount of time where I'm going to be learning at the beginning, but I have done this previously in other roles. Okay, so that's the strengths and weaknesses question looked at. Now, the next one, where do you want to be in 5 years? Well, we'd all love to be on a beach working remotely. This question is, who knows where they're going to be in 5 years? Did any of us think in January 2020 that come the 12th of March, we'd all be working remotely? No, we didn't. But the whole idea why recruiters ask this particular question is more so they want to see that you have given your career some thought, that you have a plan around it. The traditional career would have been you've entered an organization at a very young age, at quite a junior position, and basically the organization managed your career for you. So you went up incrementally, step by step, up the career ladder. That no longer exists, okay? Ye are moving into a careers where there is going to be very little security, and that you really have to take ownership of your own development along the way. So they want to see that you have researched the different opportunities with the organization. So LinkedIn is very good at that, to see what is the career trajectory of the people who currently employed in the organization. They want to see that you're realistic, that like you're not going to say in 5 years I'm going to be CEO, but also it shows self-assessment and career planning. Now, a lot of people, when I ask this question, feel under pressure to say, oh, I want to be in management. And you know what? If that's not where you want to be, don't feel under pressure to say that. You may want to be a subject matter expert, or you may want to move laterally in your career instead of vertically, and that's perfectly okay. But just prove that you've given it some thought and some space. Now, the next question we are going to focus on is, give me an example of a time when you had a problem with a supervisor, co-worker, and how you approached the problem. This is technically a competency-based question, and I have done a full video on YouTube, and it is on this pathway as well, about how do you approach competency-based interview questions. And the reason they ask this one is because conflict is inevitable in any part of life. There's going to be some form of conflict, and conflict is not necessarily a negative thing. Conflict can be very positive if people challenge you on the way you think, the way you work, in order to make it better. Okay, innovation comes from conflict, but it's all about conflict management. And that's why I'm bringing this up here as well. Normally, when you're talking about conflict, sometimes it can be emotive, and people can become visibly stressed when they're talking about it. And they may, without meaning to, speak negatively about the people involved in the situation, and the emotion can spill out in it. So it's something you really need to be prepared for, and be mindful of the example you give, that it's not too sensitive to you. So it's really much describe how you handle the situation, remove all of the emotion, be very neutral, don't say anything bad about any individual involved, and you know what, explain the conflict is not always negative, it's just how it's managed, and maybe the positivity that came out at the end. And as well, sometimes in some roles, if you're going into quality, if you're going into healthcare, you need the ability to stand your ground, and manage the conflict and not give in either, so not compromise in certain situations, and that's normally when there is health and safety involved, or integrity if you're working in the financial sector or the legal sector. So bear that in mind. Another one that people really, you can see them cringing in or in their seat when you ask this one. What are your salary requirements? Now, this is asked for several reasons, and it can be asked at any stage of the recruitment process. So sometimes I used to ask it at the very beginning in the first round screening interview. And the reason I asked the particular question was I, number one, wanted to get an insight into what was the market commanding at that particular time. Had we pitched the role at the right salary, looking at the right level of candidate? If I realised that the majority of the people that are interviewing were expecting 20k more than we were willing to pay, then I needed to go back and feed that into the hiring manager and say, look, we have not spec the salary high enough for the role, so we either increase the salary or downgrade the role. It's also I suppose a really important question that you take ownership over this particular one. There is lots of research salaries or research on salary surveys out there. So CPL, Brightwater, to name but a few, and they are fantastic. They go through each business function, job titles. They even break it down by region, and they will give you a ballpark, probably a 5 to 10k, maybe 20k region that you can give. So if I was asked this question in an interview, I would say certainly. I have done my research at the moment, and I can see that the market is at the market rate at the moment for this particular role is between 60 and 70,000 euro. I personally would be looking for the upper end and quadrant in that, so closer to the 70. And the reason is because I have over 20 years work experience. I've completed a master's in the area, and you sell why you feel you deserve that particular salary. But also say, look, I'm open to negotiation. I'd also like to see what other benefits you can offer. And, you know, particularly when it's your starting role, you won't be getting 60 to 70,000, but be flexible around it, okay, and see, well, what are the learning outcomes or the benefits of me doing this particular role. So it's really important that you've thought about it and that you are not just wild guessing, picking a number on the day, or you're not handing the control back over the region and go, well, whatever you're offering, whatever the market commands. It is a really sign of a good candidate when they know what they're looking for, what their worth is, and they're able to explain that, what their worth is. Really important question as well, and it's often answered quite badly, is why did you decide to study this particular course? Okay, don't say because my guidance counselor at school told me, or my mom and dad told me to do it. Really build up the story, the picture here, that this has been your life ambition, that you were really interested in maybe general business. You started the undergrad, then you became, I suppose, more interested in certain areas. That's why you focused in insurance. Whatever your story is, make sure that you start to bring that along and thread that through your education, your interests, your hobbies, your work experience, and it's selling a complete picture of who you are. You can say that, you know, you researched the skills that was required and they felt you suited you. You did some market trends and knew that it was skills that were in demand. Focus on what you've learned and incorporate it into your career objective. Why did you leave your last job? So this is another one that can be quite sensitive. So if you are running out of an organization and you can't get out of there fast enough, and maybe you've had a negative experience in your last role, you're going to have to leave that at the door for the interview, okay? And similar to the education be positive, focus on the skills and the experience you've gained, and that you're looking for new opportunities to expand skills and knowledge. Okay, so really sell what you've learned, what was positive about it, and now you're just looking for the next step in your career. And this particular role really matches where you want to go. So, the next question, why should I hire you? This is a tricky one as well, and it sometimes catches people at the very end of the interview, and you often get a bit of, okay. So this one should be really a match to the tell me about yourself at the beginning. So you're going to say, and refer back to the knowledge of the company, your technical knowledge and your competencies, and bring it back to you. So you're going to go, well, as I've demonstrated throughout this interview and from my application form, you can see that I hold the required education. I have 20 years experience within the area. I'm excellent at, I have the knowledge of. And you're really going to do that strong sell that you did at the beginning of the interview. You're going to do that again at the very end of the interview, and really such a drive home to the interviewer that you are the right candidate for the role. Now, another thing that you can do here as well, if there is something you'd really like to mention and that you think is of benefit to you in the recruitment process, you can mention it here. So if you didn't get the opportunity to mention a course you've done or a particular project that you've worked on that you feel is really relevant, you can mention it here as well. This is an interesting one. It's becoming more and more common in the market. So what will you do if you are not successful in securing this job? And I suppose resilience is a really big thing. It's big in education. It's really big in the workplace as well. Particularly post-COVID now, it's going to be a big thing. Employers are going to be looking at resilience. So in how I'd advise you to answer this particular question is obviously say that you'd be disappointed if you didn't get it. Mention that you'd be looking for feedback, guaranteed their notes will be in order, that you will apply to this company in the future if they have a similar role. I suppose highlight your career plan, but don't be overly but you're looking at a number of employers at the area, and I suppose reiterate your determination to get a job within this industry, not necessarily them, but within this industry. So it shows that you're proactive, that you're determined, and then that you have a career plan. So thank you very much for listening to my little speech on tricky interview questions. I hope you found it useful. Look, one thing I'm going to say about interviews, it is a skill. It gets easier with practice. You're going to have good days, you're going to have bad days. It is really a conversation with a purpose, and you're trying to engage the people at the other side of the table in your stories and what you've done to date and how you're a good candidate. I would advise you to watch 2 TED Talks, so Amy Cuddy, Power Posing, and David Phillips. It's called Magical Storytelling. They're really interesting presentations. So once again, thank you very much, and I hope you enjoyed the presentation.